Hey, how are you doing? I'm Vasco Duarte, your host on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and I've got some exciting news. So right now, as I record this, I'm holding in my hand the signed contract for our very first Global Agile Summit. We're all in, and I couldn't wait to share this news with you. So mark your calendars, May 18th to 20th of 2025 in Tallinn, Estonia. We're going to have a transformative experience. We're putting together an event that it's all about real-life Agile. It's not theory or buzzwords. It's practitioners sharing what's working, what's making an impact, and how they've overcome challenges that you too will have to face, or maybe even facing right now. We're bringing together the best stories in Agile, from product leaders to engineering wizards to business visionaries. These will be stories that will inspire you to action. This isn't just another conference. It's a chance to connect with the people that are shaping the future of Agile. And here's the best part. Right now, we're in our super early bird phase. And that means you can grab tickets at just 25% of the final price. Look, that's not just half off. It's half off of the half off. It's an incredible deal for our dedicated community members, just like you, listening to this right now. So at the summit, day one will be all about hands-on workshops. And days 2 and 3 will dive into leadership, product strategy, coding, testing, and everything that makes Agile thrive in organizations right now. Remember, these are all first-person, real-life stories. Now, whether you're a leader, a developer, or part of a consulting company, this event is built to take your Agile game to the next level. So don't wait. Go to globalagilesummit.com and grab your ticket today. Let's all make 2025 the year Agile truly transforms your teams, your business, and our industry. I'll see you all in Tallinn. And remember, go to globalagilesummit.com and get your super early bird ticket right now. It will only be available until the agenda is announced. So don't wait. Grab it right now. Right, now that that's out of the way, on to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday, the Change Leadership episode, this week with Ville Reijonen. Hey, Ville, welcome back.
Thank you, Vasco.
So, Ville, it really is an important part of our job. In fact, we're doing it all the time. That is change leadership. And therefore, and now I'm curious because you are a patterns enthusiast, we need to figure out what patterns usually work and, of course, also what patterns don't work in change. I don't know what story you have to share with us. Maybe there are patterns, maybe there aren't. In the end, it doesn't matter because we want to learn about one of those change processes that you were involved with, and we want to learn about what worked. So the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques from that story that you have to share that we can take on and apply ourselves. So tell us that story, Ville.
So back in 2000s, before the COVID started, my way of working usually was that I parked myself in some cafeteria, and I knew that people who come in, they usually are not busy. They have some time to discuss. I can ask them questions, and then it can lead to discussions or meetings or whatever. So it was an excellent place always to be in, kind of have your antennas up. And then the COVID happened, and there was no cafeteria anymore. I was like, how I can do my job anymore? And well, everybody has meetings. So how I can create the context for a meeting so people feel that it's also helpful for themselves. Usually earlier, if people came with some issue or were discussing, I noticed they have something. Often the case was that they were lacking information, or it was not so much a problem of I will think this through, but they were truly missing some piece of information or some method how to do things, maybe a pattern. So I could teach them this. And okay, how about I will run this kind of regular meeting with the people which I like to see. And I will have part of the coaching in there. So I will ask how it's going, what problems you have. And then I will based on what we have discussed earlier, I would have them do some homework and I would discuss on this topic with them. And then I would go from there that, okay, based on this one, how you will change your behavior, what do you do differently? And what I used to teach people were patterns. And I would say, because I've been repeating this, maybe it's a pattern itself to do this kind of meetings. I don't know. I've been doing them.
So tell me a bit more. So you met people and you tried to explain ideas, concepts, changes through the use of patterns. Can you give an example of that? What could that look like?
Really basic case would be, what is a product owner? There's a pattern for that one. So what are the behaviors and doings of a product owner? So if there's a person who would work with product owners, it would be helpful for them to understand what a product owner is. So then I could go through this pattern with them and this is the thing. And then we.
So what kind of, let's explore that question. So what is a product owner? Let's assume that I am, let's say, a tester, right? How would you then start explaining the concept of a product owner using patterns to a tester?
So if I would do this the way I would send you a homework, I would send you the pattern. So I would ask you, could you read this first? So it will take some 15 minutes and we will.
And where would we find that pattern? Is that what's published in the Scrum Guide, or is that something else?
It's in a Scrum book. So scrumbook.org, you can find all the patterns from there. So I would send a link to that certain pattern to the person and ask them to read it. And then this kind of flipped classroom way of, you do the first studying at home and then you go with the teacher and do the further studying with the teacher. So the same way.
So then you would expect people to come to you with questions. So I read this, but I don't really know what it means, or what if, right? Like that kind of questions.
Yeah. And over time, that kind of, you can try to explain the same thing again and again, but sometimes actually it's more beneficial to find good material which the people can check, YouTube videos, short YouTube videos, or articles or patterns, whichever is about on topic. So, and if you have created trust with the people, good connection, they will do the homework, and then you will have good discussion with them. And you will see the people change because they learn more.
Absolutely. One of the things that I like about the use of patterns is that, of course, and this is how Scrum emerged, when you put several patterns together, it kind of becomes a language, right? It's not just a collection of patterns anymore. It's actually a language. It helps us to talk about something in something we share, right? Like, for example, if we talk about product owner is only one pattern, but the product owner makes sense when we talk about other patterns, like, for example, who makes decisions? What is a backlog? How does a team get helped in understanding the customer? Like, all of those things are then coming into, in some way, into the product owner pattern, but then other patterns around it, like, for example, the sprint planning, which is itself also a pattern, and the sprint review, which is itself also a pattern. So we kind of create this language of patterns that helps us to then figure out, in the case of Scrum, how the whole system works, right?
Yes, and definitely the good thing in the patterns is that they are quite short to read. So you can read a pattern in 15 minutes, but you might end up kind of thinking it, so it might actually take longer than 15 minutes when you start thinking about the thing. And exactly, you said that the backlog items, sprint planning, all of those are patterns which you can then go through and explain with the pattern what this is about. And most often the pattern is better written than you can explain on the spot the same topic, because you don't remember all the forces, all the context, all the things which are in the pattern.
And you can learn through conversation how to improve the pattern description as well. And in fact, that is how Scrum came about, right? Because the people that were designing Scrum, they were literally going to conferences, presenting patterns and getting feedback and improving the description of Scrum through the improvement of the description of the patterns, right? So it becomes, I very often think about that one of our biggest jobs as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches is to create a productive language with the organization. So what is a productive language? It's a language, so set of terms and concepts and ideas that we can use to create agreement. Right? Like, for example, in a retrospective, it's not enough to discuss the problems. We need to reach an agreement of what to try next. If we have a shared language, then we all understand things in similar ways, and we can build a system, like the Scrum system, with those different patterns. But for example, when we don't have a shared understanding of what a pattern is, you and I, we might be talking about a tester, but you are talking about a manual script following tester, and I'm talking about a highly creative exploratory tester. We both call it tester, but they are not the same. And that creates a very difficult understanding, because if you want script following testers, then the next question is, hey, what can we automate or even, move to a cheaper country? That has happened to me, where a whole team of testers was moved from one country to another because they were cheaper and they were just following scripts. While when you have an exploratory tester, which is a completely different pattern for the same function or skill set tester, then obviously, you can't do that because exploratory testing requires direct contact with the team, an in-depth understanding of why the system is being developed, maybe even customer connections, and so on and so forth.
Yes, definitely. You have to create common understanding of words, definitions, and typical case for example, daily. What is a daily? Why you have them? It's not about reporting. It's about thinking future. So and when you go through the daily pattern with the whole team, they understand why they are doing it.
Yeah, I remember a Finnish business philosopher, Esko Kilpi, who used to talk a lot, rest in peace, who used to talk a lot about the importance of understanding businesses as this influx conversations, right? The business is not a static concept. And of course, when we talk about business, we talk about organizations, companies, and teams, and so on. And they are in constant flux. And the way that flux develops is through conversation. So he talks about the creation through conversation. So we start the conversation about whatever, a new product or a new team or a new way of working. And that conversation then has a life of its own, and it creates change in the organization, whether we like it or not, but change is happening, right? And one of the things that really struck me from that idea is this concept that we as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches are really the facilitators of that conversation. And I look at patterns as kind of a tool set that helps us to make sure that when we are having that conversation, we are starting from the same base, right? Mm-hmm. And a very common problem, Ville, I'm sure you're familiar with that, is in the early days of Scrum, people said, oh, we're doing Scrum, but we're not having the daily meeting. Oh, we're doing Scrum, but we don't actually have retrospective, right? Everybody knows the Scrum but anti-pattern. And that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what Scrum was and is at the time, because Scrum is a system of patterns together, working together. So it's a dynamic system that you can build on top of that, but we can't start without that system of patterns, right? And for me, that pattern language or the ability to use patterns allow us to create this concise understanding that we can then build from, and it helps with change because that's the initial kind of impetus for the change, right? We need to have the same language of what the end game looks like.
And this came back to the thing, I think the main issue in many organizations, not so much about making decisions, making informed decisions based on actual same language, same kind of understanding of things.
Yeah, never underestimate how same words will be understood in so many different ways. That's definitely something to be aware of. Ville, that was a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.